in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Click that like button, subscribe, notification bell. How's it going, Joan?
Good. It's good to be back. I know it's been a while. It's been
a while. We're gonna hop right back on. Like we haven't been anywhere. Shout out to Aaron B in the building. We got Terrence in the building. We got Kaizoran Empire in the building. Okay, so the recent saga, the recent outburst of outbreak of anti-Semitism coming from the Kanye region, okay, has been weighed on by none other than Dave Chapelle on Saturday Night Live.
I kind of missed the part. Is he yay now or is it Kanye? I don't know.
He's yay. He's yay. Yay. He is yay indeed, and he lost a couple billion at least recently, in value with regards to deals with Adidas and others who have dropped him, other corporate interests who have dropped him in this because of the recent spout of anti-Semitism, seemingly so anyways, in the eyes of some and others. But I don't know, I haven't been keeping much, in touch. I don't know the tit for tat of it, but
nope, not really. I've been hearing things here and there. Like that's why I was like, is he yay now? Because that's how much I'm behind with all these things. But I have heard about it. I just don't. I just never had time to dive into it because I've been hearing all these things like, oh, he did this interview, he actually makes sense, or he did this interview, he's not crazy,
Okay. Generally, do you think you consider Kanye to be crazy, or you just think, okay, he's an eccentric character, whatever?
I would say eccentric. I mean, I've seen some of his interviews prior to this, and he doesn't seem crazy. Some of the stuff he says makes a lot of sense, especially when he talks about building wealth and being motivated and just taking charge of your life. I don't think he's totally crazy. I think the whole him getting caught up in the political spectrum kind of tainted him a little bit, but I don't know.
Point. It's a good point because he's not so crazy for, especially given the behavior of, shall we say, celebrity types. As long as they don't go in particular directions, I guess it's kind of what you just pointed out, because the behavior is not that crazy. It's just also reminds me of Dave Chapelle too, when they called him crazy for kind of walking away from a couple of $1 million or because he was dissatisfied with some deal or the other. But anyways, continue. I wanted to add, but you lived in Hollywood and out there, and you probably noticed that there were a lot of Semites, a lot of Jews as well, which is a central fact about this whole thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you drive around mid-city, they're everywhere. You could tell they're wearing the hats, they have the the outfits, the whatever they're what they typically wear, their uniform, whatever you call it. But I mean, they're everywhere, especially in those parts.
Okay, cool. And that is the central fact about this thing, where it when it comes to ethnic relations, right? Let's say you live in Brooklyn and you are Black, and you're finding it difficult to pay rent, and the landlord that comes over happens to be of a particular other race, right? That and this kind of thing, and it could be you take some other neighborhood in some other corner of the world, right? Where I don't know, maybe it's Hutu and Tutsi, or maybe it's the Filipinos or what, and whomever, whatever, right? So the people spouting back and forth within those communities, right, at each other, I think is normal, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to rise to the level of Holocaust. You get what I'm saying? It's like if the people have names for the landlord, right, and his hat, right, that's just what's going on in Brooklyn. Am I making sense? Right?
I guess.
And so it's like there is a history, and this what I just mentioned is like a real thing, right? There are places where both African Americans and Jews exist together, and hence you're gonna have certain types of friction, which is just kind of normal. Could be like, oh well, the Irish and the Italians, or the this and the that, and they have their whole little tips and whatnot about it. And I don't necessarily think it should be right. It should rise up to a certain level, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And you did admit, Joan did say that Joan said they are everywhere. Like vermin, she said.
I know. Like, I mean, see, somebody just said Filipinos took over my hood. They installed some place called Jollibee's. Yep, they're taking over.
Jollibee's, the chicken and spaghetti special.
No, there's one right here. I was so surprised to see one in my neighborhood. Like, friggin', like in the middle of the desert, there's a Jollibee's. I'm like, what's happening here?
The way to break all kinds of diet. There's no diet that that you can be on and eat at Jollibee's.
Oh God.
It doesn't. Shout out to Kaizorian. Thank you very much for the 100 Kenyan shillings. That's probably like $1. But we appreciate it. We appreciate it. He's a hard-working brother out there, working in East Africa and donating. So what's up with adult supervision? Where's your higher currency, your dollar? Anyways, let's go ahead and start this, okay? Let's go ahead and start this little thing here with Dave Chapelle weighing in on the Kanye thing, because I think he handled it masterfully, and there are things about communication and public relations that I think that we can kind of discuss and unearth here as just reviewing this. Ladies and gentlemen, again, go ahead, click that like button, share the stream. Let's go. So hold on one second. Now, you recently moved. I don't know if just saying you moved is not giving out information, but I don't know if that's public information or you're hiding. Or you're hiding from the Jews. I believe your microphone you're muted, or oh yeah, you're muted.
How about now?
You're good now.
Okay. Yes, I'm in hiding. Nobody knows I moved.
Oh crap! They shut us off.
What?
Let's go to YouTube.
Uh-oh. They shut us off.
Yep.
Uh-oh. Oh crap. Uh-oh.
Hold on, let's see.
Policy violations.
It's you, Joan. You were like, you said the Jews were vermin, and they're all over Hollywood, like dirt in the street.
I want to know what these policy violations are.
I think it's because I'm sharing Saturday Night Live.
Oh.
But I'm not sure that they will have gotten so crazy if it wasn't involving controversial material. Because the video itself has one of those tags. Like when they have a controversial type stuff, they tag it, Twitter and Google. They'll be like, hey, like let's say you make a video about pandemic. Oh, it has come back.
Mm-hmm.
It has come back.
Oh,
it has come back indeed. So
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, click one, or shall we say, type a one in the chat if you hear us. Okay, you hear us live and direct. We took some fire. Okay, we took some fire, but we are still in the air, and we're fixing the plane as we fly it.
Dang. Okay.
So let me end this poll here and see what the people say. Okay. So we asked Joan, what is wrong with Kanye? Option A says nothing, just reckless. That's 80-something%, right?
I voted that one.
And then deranged, right? Seriously deranged, only 7%, and anti-Semite, okay, 3%. Okay, cool. That's not bad at all. So shout out, shalom to you, sir.
Shalom. Actually, what's good, everyone? I'm actually a Hebrew Israelite, so I believe that my people are the real Jews, and obviously I believe that Ashkenaz is the fake Jews. But that's all I'll say. Anyway,
calling them by the name of calling out the house of Ashkenaz.
Yeah, I mean the Sephardic Jews, they're good. The in Spain, Portugal, the Habesha Jews from Ethiopia, they're good. The Zimbabwean Jews from Zimbabwe, they're good. The Palestinian Jews, they're all good. So it's just Ashkenaz that have an interesting history, right? And so I would like to put
people. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to give some context both from the Ashkenaz side and also from the, let's say, Kanye side, right? And this is just going to be facts based on what we know as history. Whether you believe in history, that's a whole different argument. But the so-called Ashkenaz, right, and the so-called blacks in America have an interesting history. So the reason, let me start from the Ashkenaz side. The reason why Ashkenaz is very doesn't like being sort of compared to success and power is because of what happened in European history. So Ashkenaz in Europe, Ashkenaz came from Poland, Russia, Germany. That's where Ashkenaz actually came from. There was a kingdom called the Khazarian kingdom, right? Which is technically my kingdom, right? Khazarian Empire, get it? Anyways, so it was the Khazarian Empire, right? A lot of Ashkenaz people were there. And what happened is they started accruing money, success, and they used to do lending, money lending, right? And the thing is, when it comes to Judaic tradition, you're not supposed to charge your own people interest. So what they did, of course, is they supported each other with zero interest, but then everybody else, they charge interest, right? In Islam, it's different. In Islam, you're not allowed to charge anybody interest. And that's why they're poor, right? But in Judaic tradition,
smart, yeah.
Right.
Don't charge yourselves interest, but charge other people interest. Good.
Right. So exactly. So you form together and you start accruing wealth. So if you come to Germany, of course, a lot of
shout out to Sam Bankman-Fried. Go ahead, Sharon. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when it comes to Germany, a lot of Ashkenaz were rich, of course, right? There were doctors, there were lawyers, they're also bankers, right? Rothschild, Rockefeller, all these.
Germany goes through tough times. The Jews get blamed. Hey, look at these people.
Ashkenaz. Let's not use the. Let's not use the word.
Ashkenaz gets blamed. Look at these people. They're out there. Look, you see, they have control of this and that and the other. They are the reasons. They are outsiders after all. Easy to other and so on and so forth. Go ahead.
Right. So people blame them. Now it's true they did. Of course, they was more successful than other groups because they practice group economics, of course, and they went into sectors like banking. Now the reason why some blacks. Now, I'm not a black, I'm an African. Now, the reason why the blacks have some interesting history with the Ashkenaz is when it came to when the whites were buying ships, of course, they went to the bankers to finance them. So that's now the particular history over there, right? Because obviously the banks finance you buying ships, right? And these ships obviously carry certain goods across the Atlantic Ocean. So now that's the particular history between Ashkenaz and the blacks. Now, obviously, when it comes more to, let's say, what happened is obviously the Germans, the Nazis blamed Ashkenaz, and that's how that whole thing came to be. And of course, that's why it's dangerous right now. If you do say anything against Ashkenaz, you say, okay, he's rich or she has power. A lot of this is true. Like statistically speaking, about 30% of all Nobel Prizes in science is by Ashkenaz. I mean, that's a significant number.
Let me ask you a question. So,
but you can't say it.
We are currently in an environment where a lot of groups, right, have their own particular sacred cow, their own particular thing that you cannot say about them. The African Americans have their own particular gripe. The Asians have their gripe. We have seen them come out recently talk about being discriminated against at Harvard, blah, blah, blah. So would you say Ashkenaz is more, in terms of in this environment where everybody has a sacred cow, you can't say that, are they more vociferous or perhaps just more effective in their own particular campaign, if the question makes sense?
No, I actually don't think so. Because if you notice, if you say something against blacks and you're not black yourself, or black passing, you're going to get cancelled as well, right? If Kanye West said slavery was a choice and Kanye West was a white looking man, he would have been cancelled. So I don't think that there is a uniqueness in how Ashkenaz is treated when someone speaks against Ashkenaz. I think all the protected groups, which is the blacks, the women, and Ashkenaz, you really can't say too much against them. Or rather, you can't say things which might incite other people to build certain stereotypes and then perpetuate those stereotypes. I think that's the main case. So no, I don't think Ashkenaz is unique. I don't think he's even more organized. I think if you were to say the same things about the other protected groups and you're not part of that group membership, you would be cancelled. And that's the reality. We can show many cases where people have been cancelled for those sort of remarks. So Ashkenaz is not unique. I would say that Ashkenaz may be able to act
someone is adding context, and let's just go ahead and give him a shout out right now. I see a super chat. Shout out to Bob dropping $2 and adding some context there. Just in terms of they were not allowed to do certain other jobs, and that's why they kind of concentrated. So you say they practice group economics. That and then within what context? In the banking context, especially in certain times in certain places, and some people add the fact that, hey, they were not allowed to do certain other things, that's why they did X. I don't find that to be necessary to add at all. It's like, if you practice group economics and you decide to do anything, that's what you did. It's not like, oh, well, I had to do this because I couldn't do that. It's like, But anyways, go ahead. Hold on a second, okay? Joan, hearing what he is saying, right? Saying the Ashkenaz and they came in, and he's given the context as to why they're particularly sensitive about saying that they're in power, because that's their own particular thing. It's like the N-word for them, right?
That's what got them gassed.
That's what got him gassed. What's the difference between a pizza and a Jew?
God.
A pizza doesn't scream when you put it in the oven. But anyways,
actually, if it has like air bubbles inside, it might scream a little bit.
If it has air bubbles, yeah. Then the doughy gooey cheese. Now, Joan, I mean, any thoughts so far as to what he has said? Was that good historical context as to for you to understand from the Ashkenaz side why they're particularly sensitive to the kind of thing Kanye is doing?
I guess. I mean, I don't really know. I don't really know anything about that. This is the first time I learned about it. So I'm like, oh, okay, So that is interesting. But because they were blamed for certain things, World War II and all that. I mean, I can see that they carry that with them throughout the generations. It's like, oh, well, we were blamed for this and that, and this is why we were gassed, and then that's why, like now, like you can't, like, we went through so much harm, our ancestors went through so much harm, you can't say anything bad about us now. Like I think that's what I guess I'm seeing, which I see that with, I mean,
you can't even say anything good either. As long as you put them next to power, you can't say it, basically.
Right. I mean, I don't know if I'm the right person to talk about this kind of stuff, because again, I just don't have enough knowledge, but I've heard different kinds of things about it, and how, like, I know especially in Germany, you cannot talk about certain things. Like you can't publicly just have a conversation about what happened in the past, because you'll get in trouble. And I know that people get arrested in Germany for talking about.
And you've been to Germany, so you're not.
Yeah. And it's not even just about like, talking about the Jews, in Germany, but it's like anything that's like politics or anything like that. Like people just don't seem comfortable to talk about it in public. Like they can't share their opinion, and if you share your opinion publicly, you get shut down. Like I've seen YouTubers get shut down. This one guy hasn't gotten shut down talking about politics because he's a comedian, so if you make it funny, like you don't get shut down. Like what's the other guy? Awaken with JP. Like, he bashes politics all the time, but he's funny about it, so he doesn't get shut down. But I guess back to what like just from like what I've observed, you can't talk about them, and sometimes I just wonder like what is that? Is there something else behind that, or is it like really just they're just so sensitive? Whereas, I mean, I feel like Americans in general are just so sensitive these days anyway, but it is just such a sensitive thing that you can't even talk about it and you're afraid to share.
So, Mr. Kaizo here from the other side. Okay.
It's doctor, but it's fine. You can disrespect me.
Whatever. Dr. Kaizo. Great. From the other side, from the side of the guy in Brooklyn whom has issues paying the rent, and his landlord is a Hasidic Jew. Okay. You say they're cool. It could be an Ashkenaz or whatever it may be. And that, in other words, there's actual proximity, closeness to lead to actual legitimate friction. By legitimate, I mean people are not just reaching into some weird conspiracy theory in order to talk about, quote unquote, the Jews from the African American community. It's their landlord, that kind of a thing, right? Or if you're an artist, you're not reaching deep into some kind of conspiracy theory to talk about the Jews, because these people they seem to control every contract and every room where you get into any deal. So you see them. So it's not like you're just pulling it out of some strange place where people that you don't interact with. But continue, if you will, to flesh out from the other side, right? From the black side.
You kind of broke in like all of Dave Chappelle's rules. You said the and apple juice at the same time, like 5 times. You also said these people. You shouldn't say those kinds of things. The Ashkenaz is like Somalis, man. If you say anything about them, they'll come up in drones and fight you. So, okay, so there is context there. So I'll start off with the artist, since it's a high level abstraction that is, you can easily understand. So if you look at the record labels, especially the early record labels, you look at the lawyers. Actually, most of the record labels, Def Jam, etc., right, which is like it's owned by them. BET, again, Black Entertainment Television, right, one of the biggest Black entertainment television. A lot of the CEOs and owners, shareholders, obviously are from Ashkenaz. So you can kind of see all the things that relate to these so-called blacks in America. They have intimate relationship with people from the Ashkenaz community. And what some of them have felt, and I've actually said out loud, there's actually a lot of songs about this as well. People like that crazy woman, what's her name? The one who beat a kid or something and she got crazy. What's her name? Lauryn Hill, right? She's talked about it, etc. She's written songs. Many of them have. The issue is initially when the blacks were starting to make money from music, they kind of got into parasitic contracts. And of course, the common factor is that Ashkenaz was the person that was writing these contracts for them. And when I say parasitic, obviously you know what I mean, right? Getting a very bad deal, having like a Cadillac, kind of tricking them in a way, giving you a Cadillac and everything. You see, I'm giving you a present. Nope, you're paying for this shit. Being paid less than how much you're so-called worth. Your record labels, you're not having the right ownership. They provide you the lawyers. Of course, they're from the same community, so the lawyer knows the record label. So of course, you're not going to benefit. So I think there's that historical context of the relationship between the black.
Let me mention something here, because you kind of gave some context as to the banking stuff from Europe. And then it just so happens to be that over here in the entertainment world, whether it be in Broadway, music, Hollywood, and whatnot, that they're also there at the helm. And 2 things come to mind in terms of, well, why would that be? Well, number one, they're kind of people
all of them are basically Ashkenaz, right?
What'd you say?
People like Spielberg.
Yeah. So it's just like, okay, well, we see the banking history. Just talk about from a historical perspective. We see the banking story. What's this other story about? Arts, right? And number one is particular natural talents of theirs or whatever would lead them to. They're people of the book, right? Whether it be the physics Nobel Prizes or the Nobel Prizes in writing, right, or whatever it may be. They're kind of book people, okay? So it makes sense that they will be in the arts. Plus, also, if you're running capital, if you're controlling capital,
they have IQ. On average, Ashkenaz has an IQ of 112. That puts them at the top 15% of people on the planet. The average Ashkenaz. So obviously that explains why they dominate. Well, if you compare them to some other groups, the IQ is like 85. So you understand why they're where they are.
Okay, well put there. So it kind of makes sense that they'll be doing what they do. So okay, now does it make, what is wrong with what Kanye is doing? Is there any particular, in other words, if you were him, right? What's the end game here? What could you possibly?
Okay, so the only wrong thing you might say he did is he said that the African Americans are the real Jews. He shouldn't have said that. He should have said African Americans are also part of the Judean family. So the issue is that contrarian statement that he created. Now that's the only wrong thing he could have said. Basically, he should have been inclusive rather than being divisive. Everything else he did wasn't wrong. It's just that statement, because everything else was factual, right?
Okay, cool. Well, then we're gonna cycle you out. Okay, Joan is the special guest, and you can't be out here.
Okay, it's okay. I'm being recycled. I'm used to being treated like that, so it's fine.
You are a dusty Kenyan African smudge. Now, Chaos, can you test your microphone?
Can you hear me good? Sound good?
Yeah, well enough. Now, let me ask you, do you think Kanye is crazy, or do you think he's just reckless? If I were to give you those two options.
I would say something much worse. He has no guidance. Who's really watching and mentoring this brother since the past his mother 15 years ago? Should be the question you ask. He's a brilliant musician, and we could say he's talented in regards to what we call fashion. He made extra $1 billion off fashion for the last couple years, right? So I'm thinking there's no one that he could trust to really, keep him in order in a way. I mean, I like his energy, but personally, there should be someone that you could trust that will sit there, bench for you and stay there and try to get you in check when you're about to slip up.
That is a good thing. And Joan, being in the being around artists, okay, and you're a bit of a weirdo type artist in the sense that you're definitely more on the rational end of things. Creative people, you're more on the rational end of things, and that kind of gives you an advantage in the sense that you can observe creative people, learn to rationally understand them, and there's an aspect of them that kind of gets a little deranged, and maybe they need another person like that kind of thing, where it's like they can't. There's some people who are not great as a unit, right? Like they're just as one person, it's kind of like he's brilliant in this way, but he doesn't seem to ever say the right thing, right? Like why did he say it that way? That kind of stuff. But what do you think about what Chaos is saying here? That basically, that he just doesn't have any guidance. That's why he's. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he does, right? I mean, like clearly, like he divorced, and I don't know who he confides in, and I could guess like, yeah, I mean, maybe there is a part of him that is a little deranged, a little part of him that's just letting all his crazy thoughts out. I mean, as we all know, we're all deep down insane, but it's just, we don't speak out loud. And I think he just doesn't have somebody that kind of monitors what he's. I mean, he's a public figure. I mean, I would assume that most people have somebody that kind of like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do this, maybe you shouldn't do that. So he doesn't have that. So he just, goes out and be reckless and says whatever is on his mind. I mean, I don't think he's, I think there's a lot of things that he said that has, that's valuable. I've heard some of his interviews and things like that, like I mentioned earlier. But I think he's probably just getting, I don't know, like maybe just losing sight of like, okay, where am I going?
Now, you've never, you wouldn't necessarily call yourself a hip hop fan ever, right?
I mean, I've listened to some here and there. I mean, I appreciate it, but I don't listen to it regularly, but I can appreciate it.
Now, the question is, did you ever appreciate Kanye or not?
I never really listened to him. to be honest, I don't know what. I honestly don't know much about his music. I mean, I know he was like, I don't know, guest on like American Boy. That's the only thing I with Estelle. He sang that with Estelle. That's as much as I know. I never really followed his music, so I don't know what he sings about, raps about, or whatever.
Got it. Okay, so as we start landing the plane here, I want to play a little bit from Glenn Lowry. Shout out to Glenn Lowry, Brown University professor of economics, heavy scholar, not just some public intellectual, as they say, but a real intellectual. So shout out to him. But let's see. I believe he has some commentary with his usual partner, John McWhorter. Black guys. Let me see what I do there. I screwed that up. But with his usual partner, John McWhorter, have a couple of things to say about this Kanye situation that might be interesting. Let's see.
So I want to ask you about something else, John. Have you been following the anti-Semitism debate? Kanye West having made some statements, and Kyrie Irving, the basketball player, the New York Brooklyn Nets. You live close, don't you? What do you think about this upsurge of Black anti-Semitism amongst celebrities, if any, and how it's being handled and whatnot?
There's an element in the Black community of thinking that it's okay for us to be anti-Semitic because Jews are mostly white. So we get a pass because white people are the racists, white people are the ones in power. So we're allowed to not like Jews. But it's bad optics given the Jewish role in the classic civil rights movement, in the fact that Jews undergo considerable persecution, including today. It's bad optics.
And that's another thing, by the way. I don't think Kaizo had the time to kind of give this context, but politically also, in terms of the relationship between African Americans and Jews are more on the left, generally speaking, and they support these causes, including the civil rights movement, right? Great kind of donors to the Democratic Party, all that kind of stuff, right? So there is also that kind of legacy of Jews helping out the African Americans, blah, blah, blah.
But the reason it feels so natural to somebody like Kanye is because the Jews are white. And then also, I think another part of it is that sense that Black, Caribbean, and African immigrants tend not to have that Black Americans do. It's one of the main dividing lines, is the idea that it's fundamental to our identity to be aggrieved, that we're owed, that we're victims, that we're just not done right to. That's part of what it's supposed to be an advanced Black person with something interesting to say if you're talking about Black American. And so there's that embrace of the idea that we're supposed to be angry at Jewish people and how they run the world and they run the banks. And all of a sudden, you have Black people living today who sound like Henry Ford. And, I get the humanity of it. I had a very good friend back in the 80s and early 90s. He was a Harlemite and also a Black Muslim. And he was a very modern person in almost any way you could think of. But as you got to know him well, you realized that he had this, what I would now call recreational anti-Semitism. He had plenty of, Jewish friends, Jewish more than friends. He didn't have any real problem with Jewish people, but there were all these little offhanded remarks calling New York City, Jew York City, all these little things that
That's
it was
a good
clear
one.
to him part of bonding with Black people was to indicate this kind of anti-Semitism. And the way he, as this progressive person, made sense of it, I'm sure. I never even brought it up. At the time, I just thought, this is obviously a pose, something he kind of enjoys. We're supposed to bond over this. It's kind of primitive, but who's perfect? I'm certainly not. But the idea is that, well, they're white. And then he could think of the history of Jewish people, quote unquote, taking over Harlem, et cetera, in the past. And so he had that past grievance. But they're white and we're Black. And so we're supposed to be shaking our fist at something. But yeah, that's what's going on with Irving and West. Not to mention that they want to get a jump out of people. But how do you get a jump out of people? The reason it's going to be that is, I think, that sort of thing.
Wow. Well, I'm from Chicago. I came up in the 50s and 60s. There was a district where you could find pretty good clothing, pretty cheap, from one of a number of different, department stores and sidewalk vendors and things like that. It was on Maxwell Street on the near southwest side of the city. And it was called Jewtown. And literally, coming up unreflectively without any thought, people would say, I'm going over to Jewtown to buy a suit of clothes. That's just how you refer to that part of the city. In my part of the city in 1962, it was Jewtown. Nobody meant anything by it. That's just what it was. My uncle Alfred flirted with this Black Hebrew stuff. He was a autodidact type who read this or that little book. And
all right, so we've kind of come full circle here. Basically, the idea is, hey, there's Jewtown over there. And if you come to Hollywood, as Jonas told us, there are a lot of Jews over there. Dave Chapelle also mentioned, hey, a lot of Jews over there. And part of what Kanye is saying is, hey, there are a lot of Jews over here somewhere. And that, why does it necessarily have to be a cause for consternation, anti-Semitism, perhaps an overreaction that may then even fuel more of the conspiracy theory, right? Because let's say, for example, another example is the people who created South Park. They made this Mormon show, right? I don't know if any of you have seen it. The live play called the Book of Mormon, right? And it just insults the Mormons. And the Mormons did a very great thing. Like, they actually officially like, oh yeah, this was very funny, blah blah blah. They didn't get defensive about it at all, right? So, and I think that that's another response that can kind of just actually quell things, as opposed to you overreacting perhaps and now making it seem like there's something really going on over there in Jewtown. But well, Chaos Reign will allow you to give your last thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up with our special guest Joan in the building. But Chaos Reign, what are your final thoughts, sir?
One second, hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Let me turn my volume up. My volume just went low. My final thoughts. Overall, gotta watch what you say. At the end of the day, they are watching. I think Dave Chappelle got it easier because he's a comedian and you can get away with certain things. If you notice the thing when he talked about the other community, remember that, Ike? That maybe in a stage and time we're in now, that you could get away with certain things in certain genres of entertainment, but you can't get away with all. And because Dave has already have a reputation, which he created with himself for almost 20 years, over 20 years, he might get away with it, but in the near future, as we see things being more political and more censorship is here, I don't see him getting far, in my opinion. But like I said, he made his money raise, so he doesn't care at this point. So I think he's anticipating for the cancellation, in my opinion.
All right. Shout out to you, sir. Thanks for coming up. Basically, a final thought there with a prediction, saying basically we're going to see that Mr. Dave Chappelle is going to get cut down. He's going to get taken out. So, Joan, what do you do with your channel these days?
Yeah, taking a break. To be honest, I've just been too busy, and I was kind of going on that minimalist streak for a while, and then I got kind of uninspired. So I was like, okay, let me kind of get back to what I want to do. It's just right now I'm still settling in where I moved and figuring things out, and just hiding out, and then eventually I'll come back. But
I get it. Yeah, sometimes you definitely have to pivot a lot in this thing. And as long as you keep coming back, right, and refiguring it out, then you never quite know what will hit. It's not like, oh, I want to do this, and then I'm going to do it, and then it works. I'm sure a lot of those cooking channels, the people like the cooking channels and or the TikTok cooking stuff, I'm sure that's not what they thought was going to. For some reason, shorts on cooking, right, seem to blow up, right? Like
okay.
Just get the right. Shorts are great for, just getting the views and then also getting new subscribers. And you can put shorts in TikTok or Instagram, and then also on your YouTube as well, or link into your YouTube channel. And just the right angle, searing something here, blending something there, or whatever. Or the latte thing that I think making shorts of lattes every morning, which is simple enough, right? Do your latte thing, 20-second video, perfect. Anyways, so Wednesdays, more or less, ladies and gentlemen, Joan and I will be here holding it down, holding fort in terms of looking through popular culture and reacting, seeing what is out there, seeing what the implications are politically, economically, and whatnot. But shout out to you, ladies and gentlemen, and shout out to you, Joan. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you to the super chatters. I think I remember their names. Whatever they are, Kaizorian, Dottie Girl, Bob. Yeah, Bob is a really funny name for YouTube. Like of all of the things you could be, you decided to be a Bob. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, peace. We're out.
Young man, do you want to succeed, to expand beyond your horizons? If you want to be free, then you must learn to master yourself, your thoughts, feelings, your body and spirit. Master your subjective consciousness. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. The world outside of yourself is ruled by those who are not ruled by their base instincts. Young man, go forth into the world after this. Meditate, contemplate, then plan and execute an action towards success. Take a risk, break the rules, and be disciplined within self.